and welcome to another episode of She Builds Tech Skills North America. Today we are in New York City at the Women of the Cloud event, and we are here as She Builds, kind of meeting with the community and talking more about how we can build a more equitable future with inclusion and diversity built into all of our products and business solutions across the technical sector. So I am Candace Bohannon, and I am here today with my co-host Jigna and some lovely guests. Jigna, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello everyone, I'm Jigna Gandhi. I'm a Senior Solution Architect at AWS. And today we have two special guests with us, and I would give the round to introduce themselves, starting with you, Diya.
Good afternoon or good morning, I guess, depending on what time, where you are in the world and where you're joining us from. I am Diya Wynn. My pronouns are she and her. And I get the extreme privilege of being able to lead a practice and a body of work focused on responsible AI, essentially helping our customers think about, understand why responsible AI is important, but also do the things necessary in order to be able to instantiate best practices in their organization so that they're not just thinking about responsible AI, but they begin doing it and it becomes something that is core to the way in which they build.
So fun to be with you.
Yes, likewise.
Yeah. Hi, Stephanie Glenn. I am so thrilled to be with the AWS team today. I'm joining you from Salesforce, just up the block. So I today lead part of our marketing cloud business across North America at Salesforce, but have been at Salesforce for about 12 years. And so have had a multitude of different roles. Joined the company when it was less than 5,000 people, now 80,000 people. And I always say my night job is that I also lead the New York Site Council, so help drive culture across our New York hub, which is about 5,000 and strong. So,
wow,
That's amazing.
Yeah, very cool stuff there. So we definitely have like a strong data play going here. Both of your jobs sound super interesting. Responsible AI is something that I think we should all be more considerate of. I'm really passionate about ML ops, like how do we operationalize our machine learning things? What kind of data is going into our marketing campaigns? All of these sort of things. So as we kind of think through that, what would you say, or why would you say that it's important to have more female representation in data development, our product development, and the world of technology in general?
So I can start, and I'll just start with sort of what I see as the power of representation in general, and I'll let you get into the product and AI piece, Diya. But I think people often have said to me through the course of my career, you can't be what you can't see. And when I was more junior in my career, okay, yeah. And as I've gotten more senior and women and underrepresented groups and just people across the company have sort of given me specific things about my own journey. I happen to be pretty open. I share openly about my work, my life. I think they're one sort of integrated thing. And, I have 3 kids and I lead this crazy life and I'm pretty open about it. And I've had a number of people say, like, I didn't think that I could be a working mom and an executive and so I think the power of representation, just from a sheer number perspective, is that you can't be what you can't see. And so the more that we can bring women, underrepresented groups, and just generally more diverse thought and into the workplace, the better the outcomes are going to be. We obviously have the data behind that. We've had a chance at this conference to hear some of that specificity around better business outcomes. But I think just overall, it's really sort of changed the trajectory for people around me. And I didn't sort of realize that until I got to this place in my career.
So I'll use an example to articulate why I think it's so important that we have representation. And of course, we're talking about this in the context of women, but I'm also an African-American woman. And so it's not just about making sure that we have gender representation, but that we have, ethnicity, ethnic background, cultural background, backgrounds represented, as well as those of differing sexual orientations or differing ability. I'm walking around today, or not so much walking around today, somewhat, impaired or disabled, right? And those bring with it certain considerations. The example that I often use is one around seatbelts. And the idea that when seatbelts were created back in the 1950s, 80% of the drivers were men in cars. And as a result of that, they were designed for and fashioned and even tested against a male's physique and body. The result of that was shortly after, and a number of studies over the course of the number of years now have found that women and even children were exhibiting increased injury and sometimes death as a result of seatbelts. Why? Because there was an absence of representation at the table at the time of design, at the table in the time of evaluating sort of the results, and even looking at testing. And for me, that's a great example, because here is the thing, it was something intended for good, right? Seatbelts are supposed to help reduce the number of injuries and reduce the number of death and vehicular accidents. But, without consideration of everyone, not just designing for the majority, we had an unintended impact that actually was pretty devastating. And it's taken a long time for us to get to the point of having women fashion dummies that are actually, mimicking an average woman's size, not just downsize for men, and testing for children as well. But those were the other stakeholders, and the 20% of the women that were drivers. And I feel like we can't afford to make those kinds of mistakes, because in the case of seatbelts, the stakes were pretty high. And we're now seeing cases where AI and data are being used where the stakes are equally as high or higher. And we need to ensure that we are represented, right? All of us, the collective we.
Yeah. I could not, agree more on this. I guess that makes so much sense. Since you talked about data and AI, what are the other examples that you can think, like how data and, now Gen AI, everyone is talking about that, how that is going to change the world?
Well, it has changed the world, right?
Yes.
And I think that that's one of the misconceptions, or perhaps people are less aware of how much it's already changed the way in which we engage and interact. I mean, AI is used every single day by almost everyone, and it's in every part of, or almost any industry, and we just don't realize it. So when you turn on your lights, or when you're in a specific building and lights are being sort of managed for efficiency in the buildings, or you use your GPS, or you use your phones and you get recommendations for what you text, all of that is AI. And it's AI all the time, or even in email, or your search engines, or what you watch on TV, and what you're seeing when you're streaming. All of that is being driven by some form, machine learning, of course, but some type of AI. And so it's already changed the way that we work, the way that we interface with the world, and even the things that we're consuming. And of course, in the context of generative AI, that expectation is it's only going to grow. Right, we're starting to drive more of our decisions. We're looking for other ways in order to have greater efficiencies, but there is still, a risk, like I was just mentioning, about the absence of representation in our data and the people that are responsible for building the systems and our testing, right? That there are risks that we have to be concerned about, and that's why I think it's important for us to continue to have these conversations and also invest in ways to ensure that we have the right diversity, the right representation at the table.
Sure. Exactly.
So when we do get to that point, when we do have better representation in our data, in our workforce, all of these areas, how do you think that's going to change the way we develop solutions and products going forward?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. And I think, the sort of stated obvious from some of what we've been talking about is that with better representation, you're going to have diversity of minds, of thoughts, of experiences, and the collective will have better sort of business outcomes. When it comes to things like AI and generative AI, I was just in a conversation with a client yesterday talking about this. The generative AI trend, and you see this with my kids just playing with ChatGPT, is that we're going to put the power of AI in the hands of end users. And so, thinking with the words responsible or responsibly is about how do we make sure that experience is one that is inherently diverse and people can use it responsibly. So very simple as sales example is just the templated email, but now think about the content once we get to the content embedded in that. And so the question obviously is, okay, what does that look like? What does that feel like? What is that experience when someone receives that? Because when we're writing it ourselves and starting with a draft, right, we're using our own learned experience to do it. When we're using models to at least write the draft and then to edit, how do we do that and have less bias in that? And I think, exactly to your question, if you have more representation, if you're using the female model as you're creating the seatbelts for Gen AI, we can imagine a world where it is more inclusive in terms of putting that power in the hands of end users.
So let me tell you what I think my hope is. And that my hope is that we actually have an opportunity to use AI and generative AI in ways that actually drive greater equitable outcomes for all. And so it does require a degree of responsibility and education and awareness for those that are now consuming. And it requires the onus in some respects for those of us that are building technology solutions and systems and applications to embed where possible responsible practices and guardrails so that those that don't know can do less harm, right, in some ways, but that we really start to look at opportunities so that we can level the playing field and create more equitable outcomes for everyone.
Yeah, I really like that. It kind of reminds me of some of the phrases that we use at Amazon where it's like security is job zero, but we also need to be considering this responsibility of developing our models as job zero. So kind of a parallel for machine learning as the world. So
or 0.5 or something like
Yeah,
that.
really
We can't get rid of
For
security
sure, yeah.
entirely.
Okay.
So
Yeah. I think we are almost at time. I mean, I wish that we could have continued the conversation, but unfortunately we are almost at time. So I would like to thank you for joining us, and thank you so much for sharing your insights and sharing your perspectives as well. I'm pretty sure that it has resonated at least with us and obviously to our audiences as well. And to our audience, thank you so much. See you again in the next show.
thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.